Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Kia ora, Bolt fam. It's the director. Chargers fans, we got to talk a little bit about a touchy subject today. Yes, the run defense. Of course, there are, things of optimism, right, that we can take away from at least right now because of what the Chargers have done to address this issue. But perhaps the most frustrating aspect of the 2021 season, if you were a Chargers fan, was indeed the run defense. Matter of fact, I don't think I've ever seen an effort like Justin Herbert's in Week 18 last year. It was absolutely insane. The guy put the entire team on his back, win and in. He gave it his all. And, yes, Max Crosby threw Storm Norton around like a rag doll, but ultimately it was our run defense that caused us to just miss the postseason last year. This was a serious weakness, man, and this is one that's very easy to identify if you're an opposing team and even easier to exploit if you're trying to go out there and take advantage of a bad situation for the Chargers. Now, we do know that Brandon Staley has said enough this offseason, and he's made it a priority to fix this issue. And you know what? The man delivered. He delivered so well. So today we're going to take a look at how improved the Chargers' run defense could be in 2022, as well as what it could mean for the Chargers in terms of their season and their playoff hopes. Now, question in the comments, like we always do, the Chargers allowed almost 140 yards per game on the ground in 2021, third worst in the NFL. How many rushing yards per game do you think they allow in 2022? Let me know in the comment section below. Well, guys, before we do get started here, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it. Lights, camera, action. The Chargers run defense in 2022 from worst to first, maybe, perhaps. So let's start things off with I'll kind of a look at last season, right? What are we trying to improve on? How bad really was it? Well, the Chargers' run defense last year was pretty bad. And I'm pretty sure this comes as to no surprise to any Chargers fan. And again, it's likely the reason the Chargers missed the postseason entirely last year, not just because of Week 18, okay? The defense only held their opponent to under 100 yards in 5 out of 17 games last year. That means only 5 games in the year did the Chargers' defense hold up their end of the bargain in stopping the run, giving up less than 100 yards. And this is highlighted by probably the worst game here versus Cleveland, where we gave up 230 yards. We just barely made it out of that game by the skin of our teeth. And this was pretty much one of the first warning signs of Chargers fans, like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do to stop the run? I think people are starting to understand how to attack the Chargers. The Chargers also gave up 198 yards to Dallas and 189 yards to Houston. This is my real problem here. Okay, we're talking about Rex freaking Burkhead. Okay, he put up 150 yards against us. Rex freaking Burkhead. Okay, and he hasn't had a 100-yard game since 2016, I do believe, and the Chargers just let him run up and down the field as much as he wanted. And this very much so represents the issue that I'm having right now. The Chargers' run D was so bad last year. Every single opponent took their shot at exploiting it, and it cost us games. The Chargers lost 7 games in which they gave up over 100 rushing yards. 7 games. They lost only 1 in which they limited to their opponent to under 100 yards as well. And that's what I mean by it wasn't just Week 18 that led up to the disaster of us missing the postseason, okay? There's a lot of games, 7 games before the fact that the Chargers, you could even blame it on the run defense a little bit. The disaster started well beforehand. 7 games that the Chargers lost due to the run defense, and that did play a big part in the Chargers missing the postseason. Now, there's a few big reasons for this epic struggle against the run. 2021. Yes, coaching had a hand in it too. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But for the most part, our players just could not hold it together. And we're going to feature some of the guys that maybe had some struggles last season. Linval Joseph started out great in 2021. He's had a pretty nice career with the Chargers since being signed a few years back, but man, he started to decline over the year, and it became pretty noticeable. Justin Jones, who was maybe the best run defender on the line last season, was definitely above average. Okay, I think he was recently signed by the Colts. He's definitely not bad, but definitely not up to par with what Brandon Staley wants, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. And then finally, we got Jerry Tillery. Hey, if you're a Chargers fan, you understand exactly what I'm talking about here, right? Tillery had his moments, rushing the passer at times, but really struggled hard to stop the run. I think he actually ranked dead last in terms of run stop rate last season for interior defensive linemen. That is insane. I get that Tillery is a former first-round pick, okay, and I get that the Chargers don't want to give up on him right away. I felt that way sort of last year, but after this season, man, I feel very nervous keeping him on the line on running down. So just Jerry Tillery, that's a big problem in my opinion that needs to be fixed right away. On the other hand, there was Brendan Fayoko. Fayoko ranked number 1 in run stopping last season. So this is, the first and the worst. And for some reason last year, whether it be Tillery's draft status, how high the Chargers took a pick on him, it feels like the team heavily favored Jerry Tillery in terms of getting snaps when we had Brendan Fayoko on the roster, who's a very proven run defender. And I honestly do not understand why we didn't see more snaps for Fayoko last season. Keep that in the back of your minds as we continue on, okay? Last, we got Joey Bosa. I just wanted to throw his name out there because I feel like Joey Bosa very known for getting to the quarterback, but he's also a very stout run defender as well. I wouldn't consider him like elite at the edge position at stopping the run, but he's very, very solid. So got to keep that in mind going forward here. Another big thing I wanted to point out was the big change. Okay, there was a very big change that happened last season. We talked a lot about it, but we really are getting our first chance to step back and take a look at, maybe how things went down last season with this big change. And yes, the Chargers did indeed change schemes in 2021. We went from a 4-3 defense to now technically a 3-4 team as of right now. Did our personnel fit the system is kind of what I'm asking you guys. Did the Chargers players last year fit what Brandon Staley wanted to do in a 3-4 scheme? Now, arguably, Linval Joseph should have been the easiest to transition. He plays, he can play traditional nose tackle. That's a very nice player to have on a 3-4 team. But everyone else, you could argue, may be a better fit in a 4-3 scheme. Even Joey Bosa, you could argue. This doesn't wipe away bad play, however, but is something to point out. Now, traditionally, like we were saying with Linval, you're going to want, in a 3-4 scheme, you're going to want a huge nose tackle in the middle, right? His primary objective, stop the run. And he's going to be sandwiched between two defensive ends that have decent size and are very good versus the run. These are the guys you're trying to count on, to get out there and slow down that running back. The Chargers had some of what they needed to fulfill that system, right? But I feel those defensive ends were a big hindrance, mainly Jerry Tillery, in my opinion. I think Jerry Tillery, it does come down to him a lot in this video. But we also have to remember that the Chargers, they may be operating in 3-4, but that's more of a technicality, right? They move players a lot on defense. This defense is very unique, very creative, and I don't know if you could really call it a traditional 3-4. Be it that's what they do run a lot, it's really not appropriate to label it 3-4 because of how different it really is and how much things do move around. The struggle could, in my opinion, have also come from a lack of versatility on the defensive line. This is a big factor to bring into play here, in my opinion. We're going to expand on that, okay? Versatility is a very, very big part of why I think the Chargers' run defense did not work last season, okay? Tillery, Jones, even Linval struggled versus the run in this unique Staley system because we just couldn't move them around as much as I'm thinking Brandon Staley wanted to do. I'll come back around to that in just a second. First off, I do want to point out this pressing matter, okay? The Chargers will be facing some pretty stiff competition when it comes to running attacks from opponents this season. These are the running backs the Chargers are going to be facing this season. Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker, who a lot of people think are going to be very, very nice with the Seattle Seahawks, Josh Jacobs, Cam Akers, Derrick Henry, Chase Edmonds, James Conner, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Trey Sermon, Dameon Pierce. I think they have Marlon Mack out there now too. And then Cordero Patterson. Some pretty stiff competition. Some very, very talented running backs. And of course, some of these teams very much so known for the rushing attack. Cleveland, Indianapolis, Tennessee. These guys, this is the way they're going to come after you. And if the Chargers want to, boost their odds into making it into the postseason, they're going to have a nice counter to these teams and what they like to do. So this is what Brandon Staley decided to do with Tom Telesco, right? The cavalry has arrived. Cavalry, right? Cavalry. And here's the things that get me excited, right? We know Staley was ready to completely turn over this defensive line, and he delivered with the help of Tom Telesco. It really feels like Tom Telesco and Brandon Staley, peanut butter and jelly, right? These guys, I feel like Brandon Staley understands the game at such a deep level, and Tom Telesco is willing to play ball with this guy. I think there's a mutual respect there, and he's bringing in the personnel that Brandon Staley needs in order to deliver the defense that he promised. And this is the first season that we really get to see that. Because last season, Brandon Staley, being a very intelligent individual, came in and adopted this team and said, you know what, this offensive line, we got to fix this. We got this the number one priority. And you know what he did, man? Corey Linsley, Rashawn Slater, Matt Filer, that offensive line has looked better than maybe any offensive line I've seen in a long time as a Chargers fan. This season, however, I'm sure he walked into Tom Telesco's office and he said, you know what, you hired me last season to bring, the cojones I got in run defense, in the expertise that I carry in defense in particular, defense as a whole, right? And this is the season that Brandon Staley, wants to bring together the Avengers of this defense. I need team players that understand the game the way that we're going to play it, and we're going to create that defense that got everybody so excited for the Brandon Staley hire in 2020. And here it is, man. We got ourselves a lot of pieces to help this vision be fulfilled, right? These guys show tremendous upside for various reasons, okay? So we're going to introduce the new players once again. I know we've talked a little bit about this before, but now that we've got a big picture to look at, we can step back and see what sort of effect that these players are going to have on the run D this year. I think it's going to get some people excited. We're going to start with Sebastian Joseph-Day, which of course you guys remember on Twitter during free agent frenzy, we were all really hoping to see SJD on the Los Angeles Chargers. And there's several reasons to love Sebastian Joseph-Day. 6'4", 310 pounds. He should offer a lot of size and strength in the middle of that line. One thing that we like to talk about a lot this offseason was just size and strength eating up space, because now you got Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, right? You want to give them some space to operate, get to the quarterback. That's one thing to get excited about him right away. But additionally, probably one of the biggest things you can say about Sebastian Joseph-Day on this team in particular is that he is very, very versatile. He carries the ability to move around the line. He did so with Los Angeles Rams. Of course, he knows Brandon Staley from that system as well. But being able to perform across pretty much the entire defensive line is a big, big deal. And likely the reason that he was handpicked by Brandon Staley to come in here and help the Chargers, rescue the Chargers from this atrocious run defense situation last season. Let's not also forget that what he brings versus the run specifically as a player. So you can move him around. What does he bring as a player versus the run? He ranked 5th in the league in 2020 in run stopping. 5th in the entire league. Yes, an injury derailed his season in 2021. I get that. That's one of the biggest maybe question marks we have revolving around Sebastian Joseph-Day. But if we're taking a look at what Brandon Staley knows, he knows this player. He coached this player. He's seen this player in action in his defense. He's exactly the kind of defensive lineman that Staley needs to make this system work. He also offers the ability to rush the passer, too. I think that's something that's maybe getting overlooked a little bit. Sebastian Joseph-Day, he's put up some sacks, man. He's put up some QB hurries, some pressures. He can go in there and do everything that the Chargers need to do, but more specifically, he needs to do what the Chargers must address this season, and that's improving versus the run. we take a look at his 2020 tape, his 2021, very, very good versus the run, and he can move around all over that defensive line. Very excited to see what Sebastian Joseph-Day brings to the team. Now, additionally, we've got Austin Johnson, who I know is flying under the radar for people because I think the J.C. Jackson signing was around the same time. Of course, J.C. Jackson, super excited. We know what he's going to bring to this team. But Austin Johnson, man, a fantastic under-the-radar signing for the Bolts as well. Johnson ranked 11th best versus the run as a run stopper last season on the defensive line. If you put that in retrospect versus Jerry Tillery, who was the worst, I think there's a pretty immediate, recognition of how vastly improved that position could become. Yes, I do see him as the guy that I want to help transition Jerry Tillery out of the starting lineup if that's what they want to do. He's another huge defensive lineman, 6'4", 315 pounds. He adds another space eater alongside Sebastian Joseph-Day, which again helps those edge rushers get to the quarterback. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Additionally, Johnson also carries a big trait that we're looking for. Can you guys raise your hand? Guy in the back, what's that? Versatility? Yep, it's exactly what we're talking about. Austin Johnson can move all over the line as well. He lined up over the tackle or over the center. He lined up, all over the place, man. And this is something that I think, again, is not a coincidence. I feel like Brandon Staley wants guys that he can move around because we don't really run a traditional 3-4. Yes, at times we do. But a lot of the time, that creativity is what creates confusion for your opponent by where guys are lined up, the different mismatches and lining up versus guys that maybe can't handle Sebastian Joseph-Day or Austin Johnson or Joey Bosa, etc., etc. If you can move guys around, you can make the most of your personnel. And I think that's why Austin Johnson, Sebastian Joseph-Day, these guys have been hand-selected to come play on this defensive line for Brandon Staley. Johnson, in my mind, again, must step up for Jerry Tillery on every run down. Going from the worst run defender in the league to the 11th best is a huge, huge upgrade. Tillery, in my opinion, has become a liability, and I really hate to say it because, again, I had a lot of hope for him in 2021. Brandon Staley, I thought that maybe that would unlock something in him to bring out the potential of what we saw drafting him in the first round a couple years ago. And Johnson has a more than impressive resume in stopping the run while also offering pass rushing help as well. I think he's got some upside there. So in my opinion, I don't see very much reason to keep Jerry Tillery out there unless you see something crazy in camp where, like, man, this guy really took that leap. Let's go. Austin Johnson's the guy for me, man. And this already puts the Chargers in a much better situation going into 2022 in terms of defending the run. I do also have to point out another player, though, that, again, is kind of going under the radar. This is a big one that's getting overlooked right now. Khalil Mack, one of the biggest moves I've seen as a Chargers fan in a very, very long time. This dude is insane rushing the passer. But he is also very good at stopping the run from the edge position as well. He ranked 5th in 2020 among all edge rushers in stopping the run. 5th. Kind of reminiscent of what we heard with Austin or Sebastian Joseph-Day, right? He ranked 5th in 2020. Maybe an injury in 2021 derailed it a little bit, but man, that upside is as high as ever. And as a matter of fact, when it comes to Khalil Mack, there may be no other edge player in the league that has been as consistent as Mack in stopping the run. This is a huge upgrade over players that we had playing at that position last year in Nwosu and Fackrell. I really do love Nwosu, but he didn't grade very well versus the run. I know not a lot of people love PFF, but it's a very easy way to get the point across, and it does reflect on what we saw last season. PFF graded Uchenna Nwosu with a 56.1 run defensive grade, and Kyler Fackrell at 55. Both of those well below average and what you do not want to see when you have a team that is struggling versus the run. Mack, however, yes, he's going to bring the heat. Him and Joey Bosa are going to be amazing. I'm so excited to see that combo. Mack graded a whopping 91.7 in 2020 when he played his last full season. At least the majority of it. 91.7 as a run defender from the edge position. And you know what? As a matter of fact, he's graded between 85 and 90 for pretty much his entire career. There's a lot of years, man, where he went out there and he put an above 90 grade versus the run. This is so huge. And I think, again, this is why Brandon Staley has been hand-selecting these players to come in and play for his team. Mack can also be somewhat versatile. But at the same time, what he carries brings so much help to where the Chargers needed it most, and that's in the run defense. And that's without even talking about what he brings to the table as far as a pass rusher. This is one of the biggest moves that I've seen in a long time, and it should pay huge dividends for the Chargers in several different areas, especially when you match him up with the other edge rusher, Joey Bosa, on the opposite side of him. That is absolutely insane. Before we move on, I did want to kind of point out Kyle Van Noy a little bit. I think this is an awesome under-the-radar signing as well. I just want to throw him in the mix. Likely our edge 3, maybe inside linebacker 3 as well. He grades very well versus the run too. But the biggest reason I wanted to point him out is because this gives the Chargers a very consistent group of guys who can move around and carry much higher upside versus the run than our previous roster in 2021. The Chargers getting their ducks in a row, and they're making sure they got the backups for the backups for the backups out there to make sure that we never let up. And that's a big deal. Speaking of Van Noy and the impressive depth, it doesn't stop there, right? The Chargers, I mean, it literally throwing it all down to make sure this run defense situation is addressed. There is more stuff that they can do. I still think I really want Keem Hicks on this team. But outside of that, man, what do they have in the roster right now? It doesn't stop there. I believe the Chargers are also very comfortable in terms of depth as well. Braden Fayoko, in my opinion, who you're seeing right now, should seriously be in the conversation of getting more snaps this year at nose tackle. I honestly, dude, with how he looked last season, how he performed last year, would we be surprised to see the line like Sebastian Joseph-Day, Brendan Fayoko, and Austin Johnson plugging up the middle? I don't think I'd be that surprised. Fayoko, to me, is more than enough, or has done more than enough to earn some more reps in 2022. I would be very, very disappointed if we didn't see more involvement from him. But at the very least, he's going to be a very solid depth option for the Chargers on D-line. Chargers also signed Christian Fayoko and Morgan Fox recently. Christian Covington and Morgan Fox. Now, Morgan Fox is going to be more of your pass rushing interior defensive lineman. He's an okay depth guy. Christian Covington, however, very nice. It's kind of strange, right? When you go back and think about it, Chargers, in my opinion, had what they needed for the most part last season, right? Not to go out there and put up like crazy numbers or whatever and be like a top 10 run defensive top 10 run defense in the league, but they had the players to go out there and be better than the third worst in the league last year. I think if it were me, we should have strongly considered Fayoko, Covington, and Justin Jones being the head dogs out there for a while, and Linval Joseph for a while too. And that's not to mention as well the Chargers a little bit deeper in terms of the rookies as well too, man. We got one of my favorite picks in the draft, Tito Abonia. This guy's going to be incredible. I feel like in terms of depth, he's a very solid decision for the Chargers in whatever that middle round was to have even more depth into what you want to do. Because again, Abonia definitely can play all over the line. And again, this is a very constant and repetitive theme that we're seeing throughout this video. This line is now extremely versatile, deep, and better reflective of a 3-4 system, even if we don't play traditional 3-4 for most of the time. So what's this going to result in, right? What is this going to result in? If the Chargers are able to propel themselves into a top half of the league defense in terms of defending the run, I think this will inevitably provoke more passing from our opponents, right? And this is where the Chargers' secret weapons on defense come into play. This means more opportunities for Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack to get to the quarterback. This means more heat. This means more errant throws by the opposing quarterback. And this means more passes in the vicinity of Derwin James, J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr. The trenches are so important to how Staley's defense works. And in a way, the name of the game, in my opinion, has always been we've got to help our turnover ratio. A solid run defense that'll give you more opportunities to get that job done is going to give your superstar players, Derwin, JC, ASJ, all these guys in the secondary more opportunities to pick the ball. Not to mention Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, these guys very good at generating fumbles. And then the guys in the interior could also do the same thing as well. It just feels like that element, that foundation at that defensive line is going to have such a big butterfly effect. We call it all the time, butterfly effect throughout every level of that defense. And it's going to be a big thing. A big headache for opposing offenses to deal with next season. So my bottom line in this, the key to this entire thing, to this entire puzzle, is size and versatility. I believe this is exactly why the Chargers struggled so bad in 2021. The players themselves, yes, they could not keep up, and it showed. But this scheme is very demanding of its players as well. And you must be flexible if you're going to play for the Chargers on the defensive line. Every single signing by Staley and Tom Telesco in 2022 has been a player that you can move around. And this is without a doubt a big reason why I think the Chargers run defense, and maybe even defense overall, should look insanely improved in 2022. In the end, I think that our defense is without a doubt the biggest thing that makes us stand out in the AFC West. The key to overtaking the Chiefs is going to be defense. And these moves very much so limit what teams like Kansas City, Vegas, and Denver are going to be able to do against us. Sure, Denver's got themselves Russell Wilson now. Vegas has got themselves Devontae Adams. The Chiefs still on top of the AFC West got Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey, etc., etc. But I think when you take a big picture look at it and you really step back and you look at this division, the Chargers, without a doubt in my mind, have the best defense in the division. Maybe closely followed by Denver in some ways. But at the same time, man, that is the thing that we've got to bank on. And it feels like the Chargers definitely recognized it. They went out there and they addressed the biggest need. I think there's still room to maybe even add a couple more pieces to that defensive line if they wanted to. Akeem Hicks would make me super excited. That's over the top, and that's what the team has kind of been all about this season. But that's what's going to help us stand out. The Chargers' defense, their pass rush, their ability to help their turnover ratio with superstars. This is going to be the reason why I think the Chargers are going to challenge the Chiefs for the number one spot in the AFC West. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Also, let me know how many rushing yards per game you think the Chargers are going to give up. I think the Chargers' run defense is vastly improved, and with the pieces that we brought in, I think the Chargers can keep their opponents to under 100 yards per game. I know that's a lot to ask, but at the same time, I think the Chargers' defense is more than up to the challenge. It really feels like they're designed to get that quarterback uncomfortable, force him to pass, and try and generate some turnovers. And these players that we've already signed, big step in the right direction to accomplish that. So you guys let me know in the comment section below what your predictions are. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. And again, maybe not the biggest topic of conversation, but it's one that is, to me at least, so vitally important to the Chargers' success in 2022. And I wanted to make sure we gave it the proper time on this channel, at least to talk about it, get the conversation going. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. My God, Khalil Mack. I cannot wait for kickoff this September.